This is happiness, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.
Hey guys, welcome back to a brand new episode of Mood Prep. My name is Dave Nixon, and we're going to talk about, I suppose, working on yourself today. I guess that's what I mostly talk about, really, isn't it? I came across this quote. It was actually a sponsored ad. It's interesting because from my own personal perspective, I've seen my views on people on sponsored ads or advertising in general change a lot over the years. Especially I used to be quite resistant to it, and hey, that's like my own shit showing up for me, which is quite interesting. But this person is called on Instagram, they're at Miles Wrights, MYLES Wrights. I believe his name is Miles Scott, and he goes, if you don't know how to work on yourself, you won't know how to work on your relationship, which I think is a great quote for many reasons. But it's interesting. So this person shared that. They shared that and sponsored it. Now it's really interesting. So this is one thing. They have a quote from themselves, or at least sharing a quote on their own. I'm not sure what social media it was, Twitter maybe, and then goes on to make it a sponsored ad. It's advertising something like that, but this is the kind of advertising that I like. And the reason why I say that, I mean, I probably like other types of advertising as well, but is because he's advertising a really solid message that I think a lot of people, would benefit from hearing. And it's also not just a generic form of motivational quote. It's not just, if you, not to say that this isn't correct as well, but if you can believe it, and conceive it, you can achieve whatever that quote is. I don't even know what it is. There you go. Haven't been targeted, but I believe my FBI person may be listening, and that's what I'll get next. So if you don't know how to work on yourself, you won't know how to work on your relationship. This is really interesting. Now let's look at the word relationship. Hey, so I want you to think of the word relationship as relation. So first, relating to somebody. Right, relating to somebody, that's being heard, but more importantly, hearing the other person without trying to fucking fix them, without trying to solve their problems, just trying to hear them, to try and calibrate them, right? To have what's called sacred listening. And that's when you're not thinking of, because if you're thinking of solutions as let's say you and I are having a conversation, if you're thinking of solutions to my problems as I'm talking, you're not listening to me, you're trying to find solutions for me. So you're thinking, you're not actually listening. You might be somewhat hearing me, but you're not really listening. You're not listening sacredly to what is my body saying? What are the words that I'm saying that have more emphasis? What are the things that I'm not saying? You're missing all of that because you're busy trying to solve a problem on surface level. And this can actually cause a lot of break in rapport, right? Whereas with sacred listening, what we're really doing is we're really relating to the person because we're calibrating them. We're actually inquiring into them. It's like, well, you said this, what do you mean by that? How are you using that word? So it sounds really challenging. What's the most challenging part of this? And trying to really understand the other person. That goes back to the old Stephen Covey quote of first seek to understand, then to be understood. And so when we're in that, we can continually be relating. Hey, and think of the word ship as process. Right, think of it as like shipping. It's a process, right? Especially if it's like next day shipping, it's more expensive. So think of the word ship as process. And so relationship now turns into the word of the process of continually relating to people, right? What happens is that we stop relating because we let our own shit get in the way. And we're like, oh my God, this person does this and it fucking frustrates me. Well, that's your frustration. It's not theirs. They go, but they shouldn't do that because it triggers me. Well, that's your trigger. It's not their trigger. And so we have to be really mindful of walking around in a victim space. And now it doesn't mean that if somebody continually goes out of their way to keep triggering your shit, then maybe stop spending time with that individual. Like, fucking for sure. But at the same token, it's just like, this is an opportunity for you to recognize the shit that triggers you and take control of that. If you need to see a psychologist, if you need to see a therapist, if you need to go see those types of individuals to help you with that, then there's no shame in that. There is no difference to doing that than seeing a personal trainer to get more guidance on your physical health. There is no fucking difference whatsoever at all. In fact, I think there's more information on physical health than there is on mental health. It would make more sense that it would be easier to Google physical health exercises to stay healthy than mental health stuff. Like, listen to the world we're in. We can Google that type of stuff, but there is absolutely no fucking shame in seeking help from people that spend and devote their life to really digging deep into the mind and understanding where people are at and how they can help them overcome their challenges and struggles and triggers, right? Because if something's triggering me, it often means that I'm going to reaction something, right? So the whole idea here is to go, well, if you don't know how to work on myself, then I'm just going to keep on complaining about people triggering me. And the inverse of that, it's like, well, I keep on triggering them and I fucking know it, but I don't want to admit it. I've got some shit I need to work on. So many people, when I do coaching, right, and the thing with coaching is really facilitating change through conversation by going into the deeper layers of our unconscious to understand what may be some blind drivers. And they're not really that unconscious. As soon as we see them, they're so obvious that it's like, fuck, I've known that this whole time. Why did I not know that? Right? But the coaching stuff is that people go, oh, I've got a problem with this person at work, or, this is what's happening with my spouse, and this really frustrates me, makes me feel like this. How do I get them to stop doing it? It's like, we're not having a conversation about them. We're having a conversation about you. I can't change them. You can't change them. But this person has gone through their whole life thinking that other people need to change in order for them to feel however they want to feel. Now, we have rights. Yes, we have rights. But the inverse of the conversation of rights is responsibilities. And often we hand what's in our circle of responsibility, which is our thoughts, our emotions, our speech, and our behaviors, we hand that over to other people and go, hang on a sec, I'm offended. I've got a right. It's like, you can't give offense. Offense is taken. People take offense, right? It's in my realm of responsibility. And so what's really fascinating about all this is being able to understand that at the core of my relationships, at the core of my process of continually relating to the people that matter to me, is working on myself. Myself, the person behind all the egoic structures and the triggers, the person behind that, and understanding that person. Because the more connected we are with the deeper self, the less concerned we are with the surface fucking level shit. There's a quote, and it's something that I remember, especially when I go through my fucking challenges and struggles and all that sort of shit, but there's a quote and it says, you can tell the size of a man by the size of his problems, right? And often our problems are so minute, and it's because we're stressed about so much other shit, but we're not in a position where we want to focus and deal with it. So we just take it out on a small issue that's not really a fucking issue. But we're so frustrated in other areas of our lives, right? If you see someone fly off the handle about something small, it's not about that, right? But the key message here for us is that we have to continually work on ourselves. And there's no fucking shame in that. We're born with this amazing computer in our head that we don't even understand. I remember hearing a quote, and I got a fucking, like a file of quotes in my head. I don't know where they come from. But it said, if we could comprehend our brain would be so big that we wouldn't be able to comprehend it. Like, this is such an amazing thing. Like, consciousness in itself is so amazing. We're not meant to know how to deal with it all the time, and that's okay. Not knowing is okay. It's whatever we try to control controls us. Whatever we try to control controls us, right? It means we're out of control. But what we have in our control is what we have responsibility over. And that's working on ourselves continually, unfolding, patiently, lovingly. And when we do that, we start to respect everyone else's unfolding, whether they're aware of it or not. On that note, team, I'm done. If you have found this podcast beneficial, it would mean the world to me if you'd pass it on to someone else that you think would also find it beneficial. It would also mean the world to me if you'd come along to the Mood Prep Intensive weekend in Sydney, 21st, 22nd of September. It's on the Northern Beaches. We're going to go through a heap of personality typologies, thinking patterns. We're going to go through different levels of thinking and levels of awareness, as well as the levels of listening that I mentioned just before. I'd love to see you there. You can find out more details on my website at davenixon.com.au, or you can find out more at the Facebook community. So the Mood Prep community on Facebook, just search it, click add invite, whatever the number, I don't know what it is, just click that and I'll let you in. On that note, I'm done. Until tomorrow, peace and pizza. kick today in the dick, and slay the dragon. I'll see you soon.
Yes, to be everything at once. Be unblinded, be unlearned, be unbridled and unburned.